Hello and welcome to your practice for today. The posture for today is plank pose, but we're going to do a lot of tutorial and exercises to prepare your hands and wrists, your shoulder girdle, your abdominals and back, and also just to develop awareness of proper form in this commonly utilized posture. So usually we build from the ground up, and today we'll kind of include the hands instead of just starting with the feet. So we're going to start our plank preparation in tabletop position. So come with me to an all fours body position in which your hands are stacked right underneath of your shoulders. Your wrists are underneath your shoulders, really. And your knees are directly underneath your hips. Once you get set up there, just notice the particulars about how you landed. Some of you will find that you naturally turn your hands out a little bit. Some of you might turn them in a little bit. And oftentimes, I hear the cue to point the middle fingers forward towards the front of the mat for plank posture or downward facing dog or any of those positions where our hands are part of the base of support. That might work for you, and if it does, keep it that way, go for it, that's wonderful. I actually like a very slight turnout so that my index fingers are pointing straight ahead. My middle fingers are actually pointing towards the corners of the mat. This is a really strong line in your body, right from the index finger up through the wrist and the bones that are part of your lower arm. So I like to point my index fingers forward. That provides a really nice base of support in tabletop, in plank, in downward dog. Another thing that I want to mention is the proper yoga hand placement. There's a hand orientation in yoga that is called Hasta Bandha, or hand lock, and it involves pressing into each finger pad. And when I'm teaching training, I often tell people to imagine that they are trying to stamp all 5 fingerprints on a piece of paper, and you want to have that contact. Also, you want to contact the ground with the heels of your hands. So kind of right here on the hand and right here. What I often see instead of that is a real lightness in the finger pads and a lot of pressure in the palms of the hands and the wrists. And that's why people say, oh, it really hurts my wrists when I do plank or downward facing dog or a vinyasa flow. So if you practice properly with that finger pad pressure in all 10 fingers and a little pressure in the pads of the heels of your hands, and almost imagine that there's a really small green pea underneath your palm that you're trying not to squish, that's going to build the proper strength in your hands and your wrists for all the postures on your hands, up to and including handstands, which are not a part of this challenge, but you certainly wouldn't be able to do a comfortable handstand without mastering the skills involved in plank. So let's get set up. Again, either middle fingers or index fingers pointing forward. And then just take a few shifts back and forward. Even just that simple movement forward and backward is going to start to strengthen your wrists and help you to learn to sort of break by using your finger pad pressure. So it's a really good practice for anyone that's planning to spend time on your hands, including all of you hand balancers or people that just want to work on arm balances in general. Come back when you're ready, and then let's take a little walk around, shifting from one hand to the other as you turn outward with your hands. Maybe you just get a little of the way and then it starts to feel like too much wrist pressure. When that's true, come on back slowly, returning. Or some of you might have quite a bit of mobility, and you can walk all the way around until your fingers point back at your knees. And this is a really nice forearm stretch. I'm going to stay here for a moment just because it feels good. And that's key. It feels good. If this doesn't feel good, don't force it. It takes time to work up to some of these things, especially if your body's not naturally very mobile. You might have the gift of greater stability, but not a lot of flexibility. So don't force it. When you're ready, come back to your solid hand position. So index fingers or middle fingers pointing forward. And then let's take a look at the shoulders. What I often witness is like kind of a collapsing and dropping into the shoulders like this. So let's really train the body to feel both protraction and retraction of the scapula. We're going to do some serratus push-ups here. Try not to bend your elbows. Just come with me down and up. So if you were viewing this from the top, it looks like this. It's like you're squeezing the juice out of an orange between your shoulder blades and then stretching the skin across your upper back as you push the earth away. And the first time I ever did these serratus push-ups, I was like, oh, they're easy. And then all of a sudden I was like, ooh, this is getting hard. So do a bunch. In plank posture, while a lot of people collapse like this, we're going to be aiming for protraction of the shoulders. So your skin will be stretched across the upper back, and you'll be pushing the earth away. Now let's move down with our awareness to the belly. And lack of core strength, belly strength, causes this sway that happens in the lower back in plank or even in tabletop. So what happens is, due to just a lack of contracting and awareness of the belly or a lack of strength there, we lose stability. The pelvis tips forward. So the bucket of the pelvis, instead of remaining neutral, it spills anteriorly. And we want to keep it neutral. So that involves a pulling of the belly button towards the spine. And you can even kind of play around with some pelvic tilts here, noticing how it feels to purposefully spill forward, and then to even exaggerate and tuck, spill backward with your pelvis. This is an awesome exercise in and of itself for maintaining pelvic mobility and offering some TLC to the lower back. I like to do pelvic tilts from this tabletop position and also from a supine position on the back, imprinting and releasing. All really good plank prep. Notice where you tend to go. I know for me personally, I tend to tip my pelvis forward if I'm not moving with awareness. And then I have that increased lumbar lordosis, or I've got a sway back that tends to happen. So I have to be really conscious of pulling my belly into action and staying neutral through the pelvis. All right, so that brings us to a pretty good awareness of the positioning for plank. And we will get to the feet eventually. But for now, let's just work with that and move with that a little bit. We're going to actually sit down on the heels now and start to release into a nice stretch in child's posture. Keeping the awareness in your hands, letting your forehead rest on the floor. Or if it doesn't come down to the floor, that's fine. Just let it release towards the floor. And take a breath. And if you've let your forearms and your elbows settle down onto the mat, it's time to pick them up and get really active through the arms. Make sure your shoulders aren't creeping up around your ears. Keep them drawn slightly back, but let your arms be really long and straight. And then right from here, we can shift forward right through that tabletop position and a little bit further past it, and bam, right away you're in your kneeling plank. So let's hold that a second and make sure that you are pushing into each finger pad and that you're not collapsing at the shoulders. Your shoulders are protracting, we're stretching the skin across the upper back, and the shoulders are right over the elbows, which are right over the wrists. And then just pull back. And then let's move that with the breath. Inhaling and shifting forward. And exhaling and shifting back. Breathing in. Breathing out. And a lot of days when I'm not sure what to do to get started in my own personal practice, this is how I begin, just to shift in and out. I come to child's pose and just hang out for a little until I feel settled. And then I just start to move like this because it really helps me to warm up my wrists and loosen up my lower back where I carry a lot of my tension. And then I just feel like the practice usually flows from here. We'll do one more. Shift forward and back. And then just hold in your child's posture. Take a breath. And then when you're ready, come forward again into your kneeling plank. Now this might be as far as your body is ready to go. And some of these postures were not built overnight. They're not meant to just be leapt into on your first day of practice. So if you're feeling like, wow, this is quite a lot on my wrists, despite being aware of all my hand positioning, or I'm really feeling a lot of work in my shoulders or my core, then great, you've completed the practice. A kneeling plank is a plank. If you feel like you're ready to go a little further, you can tuck your toes and lift up so your knees are off the floor. And remember, you can come down anytime, but here we are in a full plank. And again, things I see here are collapsing at the shoulders, so make sure you don't do that. Collapsing in the lower back, the banana back plank. Make sure you don't do that. Pull in. And those are the main things that I see. You can do this with your feet hip width apart, or you can squeeze your legs together if that helps you to feel just a little more solid. So we'll hold here. We'll try for 3 more breaths. And then we'll bring the knees down. We'll press back to child's pose. Take a breath, take a break. And then we'll come forward and either hold with me here in your kneeling plank or tuck your toes and lift up again. High plank, holding for about 3 cycles of breath. And then bring the knees down, press back, take a breath, And then we'll do one more round, shifting forward, really stabilizing through the hands, the shoulders, the abdominals, and then tucking the toes, lifting up, holding for 3 breaths. And then bring it down, come back to child's. After all of that, your wrists are probably ready for a little more attention. So you might come to a kneeling or a seated position and interlace your hands. And then just start to draw some very slow and gentle figure eights with your hands and your wrists. And then see if you can draw your figure eights the other way, which is a real brain challenge. You can place the backs of your hands against each other to get a little stretch. I encourage you not to take the palm of one hand and press, because it's just all too easy to overstretch and jam your wrist a little bit further than it really should go. That's why I like this, because there's sort of a natural stopping point. And if you want to deepen it, you can lower your elbows very gently until you feel that just enough point. And then when you've had enough, just release. And like I said, that shift from child's posture into a kneeling plank is a really nice place to just take off and build your practice from there. So if you're in the mood to keep flowing, go right ahead and continue on. And if you've had enough for today, then thank you for joining me, and I hope I'll see you for another posture very soon. Have a wonderful day or a great evening, and enjoy your practice or the rest of your day. Thank you.